welcome to Banternomics. I know you are wondering, what in the world is Banternomics? It is the ultimate fusion of banter and economics, a roller coaster ride of wit and wisdom that dissects the quirks and intricacies of the economic landscape in a way that's as entertaining as it is enlightening. We will unravel the mysteries behind market trends, fiscal policies, and financial headlines that impact our lives. So, whether you are an economic enthusiast, a casual learner, or just someone who wants to enjoy a good laugh while expanding your horizons, Banternomics is the podcast for you. So get ready to explore the unexpected intersections of money, markets, and mirth. Banternomics.
Hi guys, welcome to Banter Economics, where we talk about everything about economics, from unemployment rates to why the money in your account is reducing that fast, and where next to get your next best investment. With me, I'm with the guys that know everything in the market: TinuBull, head of brokerage from Commercial Partners, and Opeyemi, our asset management guys. So let them introduce themselves to you. TinuBull.
Hi guys, my name is Tyrell Adams. I'm the head of brokerage services at Commercial Partners. I've been with Commercial Partners for around almost 6 years. We trade largely fixed income assets, some also generally the financial markets. So thank you for having me.
Oh, very lovely to have you. And Opeyemi.
Hi everyone, my name is Opeyemi. I'm a portfolio manager at Commercial Partners Asset Management. Unlike Taiwo, I just resumed this month. It has been a very nice experience so far. What we do majorly, we help clients manage their wealth, from retail clients to high net worth individuals and even corporates. But yeah, we'll see how it goes.
Wow, so you can see I have the right guys for the job, and welcome to Banter Economics. Without further ado, I'm going straight to the topic at hand. We have a new president, we have inflation numbers soaring, we have unemployment numbers that we're here to hear from since 2020. But this is TinuBull economics. So what do you have to say? How do you rate the president's economic policy so far?
For me, I would say so far he has done well. Of course, we can point to some facts, some places where he has also not done so well. But I mean, I think he started off very well in terms of some of the policies that was brought on the floor. When you look at the subsidy removal, although that was done in the previous administration, but he came and stuck to it as well, and he went by it, and also trying to unify the FX as well. You've seen how that has translated to a lot of. We've seen a lot of investors start to look at Nigeria in terms of from a more serious point of view. Obviously, when Tinubu came in, we had seen how the stock markets have been performing. When you remove subsidy, it's like you are taking a lot of burden off the federal government and opening up the taps. And I think that resonated well for investors, and we saw that translate into the markets as well. So far, I think he has done well. There have been some places where I think he has fallen short and he could have done a bit better. I'll say probably in the implementation phase. Of course, when you're removing subsidy, it's going to cause a lot of pain. I mean, we're talking about a country where over 30% of its population are already in abject poverty. And of course, once you take and inflation was already a global issue, and Nigeria wasn't exempted from that already. So, of course, when you take subsidy out, you're definitely going to add to that inflationary pressure, and obviously add to the poverty line as well. So I think one of the major things that should have been done, where I'm not against the removal of subsidy, I think that how to cushion that effect or should have been also planned out properly so that people don't get to feel that. I think in any government, when there's reforms happening, there's going to be some pain. And I think it's definitely going to be harder for the common man to understand. And that's where the government needs to be able to try to, relate their messages properly and also show that sympathy. And again, I think they needed to have been proactive in terms of implementing those cushioning effects as they took out subsidy. So far, I think if I was to rate his performance, I would say so far between I would say 5, 6 over 10.
Oh, that's really nice. Believe me. Well, like from international bodies, from the IMF to the World Bank, everybody has always been preaching subsidy removal from their last reports. We're talking about from 2020 up to date, and TinuBull has actually been the first person to take it a step ahead. But believe me, there have been mixed reactions from Nigerians about the subsidy removal, from trekking to some people actually being happy. I have a friend, Emeka, sorry I'm calling your name, but he just got a pay raise and now he's working from home. As in, so how come this subsidy removal seems to be helping him? Opeyemi, what's your thought on that?
So not to just dwell on like negatives of subsidy, just a bit of light banter. Like at least there are fewer cars on the road.
I know, right?
Fewer cars on the road.
I've not experienced traffic in a long time.
Exactly. So yeah. But like Taiwo said, like when economic reforms are put into place, like you don't expect to see like the impact immediately. There's obviously going to be short-term pain. So but I think what we in-house and what I believe a lot of Nigerians are clamoring for is it should not be the fact that we are suffering now and in the long term nothing is going to change. So like we really hope that this current administration has what it takes to actually not disappoint Nigerians that are looking up to them to actually see all these policies through the line.
Well,
I think, like what Ope is saying, to be honest, you can't really blame Nigerians. Nigerians have been through a lot. We've been coming off several governments where they've not really met the expectations of Nigerians. So I think there's a lot of trust issues here. So, and that's why this administration has to come with a different mindset where they're coming here to try to ensure that they are trying to renew that trust. Of course, everyone, we may be experts, so we understand when things are happening in terms of reform, right? Doesn't mean that we're not feeling the pain. But what a common man understands is the food on the table. When is he going to eat? How is he going to? So you need to, as a government, be able to pass this message and also show that, some sort of trajectory and show the timeline and let people understand that, look, all of this that we're doing is not that we came in here and there's so much resources. Government is about how you want to manage your resources and, even grow those resources so you can do a lot more. But of course, we know where the position that we are in. We've seen the past administration, we grew our debt stock from about 30 trillion to about 70 something trillion. Of course, any new government that comes in has a lot to try to unfold or try to unpack when you come and try to deal with that. But nevertheless, you signed up for the job, and that's why people voted you in, right? So the expectation is that you, as the new administration, should also understand that there's a lot of trust issues, so you have to manage those trust issues. So obviously, those are good policies. When you look at it from the international side of things, investors will not come into a country with so much risk, and that is not a free market. Investors want to come into a free market. They want to come to a place where they're not that you don't have inconsistent policies. I think that's one of the main issues that we have in Nigeria as well. We have policies that are so inconsistent. And if I'm coming to your country and I want to, there's so many resources in Nigeria. Of course. But if you're looking at the fact that you want to come and play here long term and you've seen the trend of inconsistent policies, it will definitely, deter a lot of investors or the right amount of investment to come into the country, because you know that at the point that I come into this country, anything can happen. And then what happens to my investment? Because any investor is the number one thing they look out for is the risk, and how protected their investment will be. So yeah, definitely, I think the government needs to do a better job in trying to communicate some of these policies better and be a bit more transparent in how things are, unfolding and how things are getting done. That's my take on that.
Well, certainly, I agree with you. Certainly, it's popular for economics to always think about long term, in the long run. But it was John Maynard Keynes that said, "In the long run, we are all dead." So let's talk about the short run and how people can put their food on the table. So talking about the short run, I'm sure there are some short spikes in the market, like the stock exchange market. Were there any profit-making opportunity due to this fuel subsidy removal? Did we make a bank, Taiwo?
I mean, I'm not at liberty to disclose, obviously, but I think yes. I think, to be honest, from the first day of TinuBull's inauguration, we definitely saw positive sentiments across all our markets, Eurobond markets, equities market, as well as even our fixed income market. And of course, what was driving that, like I said or alluded to in some of my first statements, was that when you're coming to a market where they're promoting deregulation, you see that the oil and gas space is, crude oil exports is one of our major, or if not our major, in fact, is our major FX revenue driver for now. And you have a market where there has been controlled for so long and you've not gotten the right amount of investment in that space. A case where someone actually comes in with that political will and says, you know what, we are going to take out this subsidy for real, and is actually going about it. Past governments have tried. I mean, remember the Occupy Nigeria, saga and everything. People, governments always end up folding. And we had someone that came and, with that political and say, look, this has to happen and this is going to happen, and it actually happened. So a lot of that was, gained a positive sentiment from the international community and of course even the local investors as well. We saw how IMF and the likes of World Bank were commending this effort as well, because we knew we are in the debt market and we see what the effects of subsidy has done to our debt profile. Of course, majority of that subsidy comes from borrowings, and you look at your debt service. There's no way a country can grow that way. So, of course, we saw some good positive sentiment. Markets, equities market reached a record high. We are currently at about 64,000 on the ASI right now. So I think there's definitely some positive. We saw some very good rallies in the fixed income market. Of course, we've seen some retracement and some adjustment as people try to understand, the long-term effect of some of these policies as well. But I think the initial position was that, there was interest in Nigeria, and we started to see, we saw some positive sentiment, definitely. Some gains were made. I think stock market has been more active this year than it has been for quite some time. So
true. I noticed. So the truth about it is that when the facts change, we have to change our mind. And before now, Nigeria has been running an interventionist policy. We have been throwing away the laissez-faire policy. But now with the TinuBull's regime, we are looking at a pro-capitalist government where we are looking at less taxation in form of tax returns, and we're looking at businesses having a boost. So let's go to the asset manager. How can individuals position themselves given this new policy reform to make a buck at the end of the year?
Yeah, that's a very good question. So traditional asset management, like we always advise you don't put all your eggs in one basket. Really. Like no matter the situation of the economy, you always have to have a diversified pool of assets. Pardon me. Equities market has been popping this so far since the new administration got inaugurated. But you'd ask yourself, for people that have not really positioned in the equities market right now, is not really like a good entry point for them. It's yes and no, really. You can't really tell. There are so many things that have been triggering the equities market since the second quarter of this year. We've seen post-inauguration rally. We've seen something as simple as the S&P upgrading Nigeria from negative outlook
earnings
to
reports
stable.
as well.
Earnings reports. We're still expecting banks, tier 1 banks, to release their results. We still have the MSCI announcements later in the year coming up. So there are still so many things that could trigger movements in the equity direction, in either direction. So maybe always advise potential investors, particularly newbies, to kind of like diversify their assets, maybe place a bit of their capital in equities, place some maybe in funds, if they are not able to have access to the fixed income market like bonds and treasury bills because of size barrier, they could position in maybe mutual funds offered by asset management firms. We have a mutual fund, by the way, but that we'll speak about that later. Also position in maybe real estate notes. Just position across several asset classes. So you're not so if one asset class is performing poorly, at least you have a hedge in another asset class, really.
So, thank you very much for your insights. So, we are moving on. So, one thing that's going on is that picking the right person for the job is always paramount. It's just like picking a mechanic. If you pick the wrong mechanic for your car, you go suffer. Fuel subsidy or no fuel subsidy, you would chase your mechanic. So, and it's very difficult getting a good mechanic. So, my question is, what is TinuBull's ministerial list? How does it look to you? Because picking the right person for the job has always been a thing of great caution. So what do you think about TinuBull's list?
I mean, for me, not to get too political, but of course, when you look at the history of TinuBull, we've seen that how he's been able to select, people from nowhere, and obviously they've been able to perform. Lagos is the best, case where you are able to use the sort of like a guide to be able to judge and see what he's been able to accomplish. Of course, when you look at this, we've all seen what is going on across all social media platforms, and the talks that people have been talking about in terms of that ministerial list. For me, I think I understand that in politics you can't just have just technocrats. You have to have a mix, because it's still you still went through a political party, and you still have to handle that side as well. So, which I totally understand. I would say where I have some reservations would be around the portfolio distribution, and I think a lot of people have shared their comments around that as well. And we have some very solid names on that. I mean, of course, some ex-governors and some technocrats are in there, and some senators as well. For me, I feel if you run a state, there's a way you can actually, assess that person, because running a state, you're the chief security officer of the state, so you should be able to see what you've been able to achieve there. So from that, I think people can draw their conclusion and say, okay, based on this, you think this person can perform. I also think that some of that portfolio distribution, there were some key people in that list that I would have preferred them to be in some maybe switch to some other portfolios, and I feel they would be able to do better there. But again, onto the way the law is innocent until proven guilty, right? So for me, I would like to give him that benefit of the doubt, and and believe that there's a strategy here. I think one of the things I also liked, and is something that we as investors as well will start to look at, and I think that even people, regular people outside, is some of the new ministries that have been created. There was something that came out, when people were talking about cost of governance and everything, which I definitely agree on. But sometimes we have to look at our own situation different from somebody else's situation. What happens in America is not the same thing that will happen in Nigeria. Sure. And it's funny because I have chats. Me and my friends, we fight like crazily on politics, right? And it's almost like we're not friends when we're talking politics. At some point, I tell my friends, I'm not talking politics again, because we're always going back and forth. But I think it's always interesting for people to show their passion and show their interest in politics, right? So when you have bad governance or you have good governance, I think the people are also responsible for that as well. So like we were discussing around the ministers and what has happened. Everybody's just like, I think for us, let's give him that benefit of the doubt, and let's see that those new ministries that were created. And like I was trying to say about, I saw one article about people making fun of, like in America, they only have about 15 secretaries and 15 ministers. But, the difference in America is that, of course, America is a developed country and they have a proper system. But don't forget that in Nigeria as well, we have so many resources in Nigeria that have not been harnessed. So for you to harness them, you are going to have to create or put some attention on those, in that area, right? So I don't mind creating ministries to try to ensure that there's a focus on harnessing those critical sectors. I mean, if you do your research in all 36 states in Nigeria, you have at least two mineral resources. And I can assure you that we have not even tapped into the true potential of those resources. So you need more hands. You definitely need more concentration. So what I think the again, transparency is very key. And what I think regular citizens want to hear or want to see is that okay, you are forming this amount of you're having this amount of ministers or this amount of ministries. How is this going to translate to wealth for the nation? How is this going to translate to a regular man? I think that's what they need to continue to put in front of people or regular citizens constantly every day. That's my take.
I agree with you, man. We really need to put the information out there, let them tell us what they are doing so that they can give a necessary buffer. I think it was Karl Marx that said, if a doctor or a lawyer makes a mistake, it leads to a casualty of one. But when a political scientist makes a mistake, it leads to a casualty of a multitude of people. So their accuracy is very important. So what's your take on it? Which minister to you is around your A-list? Is a top-notch, kudos, Mr. President, you made a good choice.
Yeah, not to get too political, maybe just to mention, maybe the minister in charge of new technology, new media, that's Bosun.
Okay.
I think he should be.
I think that's very, because obviously that is a known person in that field as well. So I think he would definitely be able to hit the ground running.
And maybe just to mention one more, just something that affects everybody. Minister of Finance is very important. That was a very solid. That was a very solid appointment. So I think a lot of us were already expecting for like months now that it would be him. So I think. But I mentioned Minister of Finance just because of how deep that particular ministerial portfolio is.
Very, very important.
It affects from the most sophisticated investor to the person that sells maybe pepper on the street. It affects everyone directly, because really we have to get, as a nation, we need to get our finances, our economic policy, our finances, we need to get it in order. Like dollars today, before the start of this week, where maybe when NNPC got that $3 billion aid, and we started seeing
on the JP Morgan. Okay.
And we started seeing, what do you call it? Rates in the black market like appreciates. I think right now, started the week somewhere around 900 or so.
No, it was above 900. But I don't think we can really point to that as one of the things that has caused the Naira to appreciate. Of course, we heard the acting CBN governor come out after meeting the president and sort of warn speculators about some of the moves that they are trying to make to try to ensure some liquidity. I mean, speaking about FX, really, it's been a roller coaster for a lot of Nigerians, and it's unfortunate and that's the reason why we have to move from that consumption to production. We have to get to a point where Nigerians are not necessarily so focused on importing or so reliant on importation and start to get things homegrown, right? Exactly. So that definitely is something that would help in terms of our FX policies as well. So yeah, I think we can do a lot better in that space as well.
Well, I think it was Leonardo da Vinci that said, God will sell you the price of anything if you're going to give hard work. So what is the price of inflation? Is it economic growth? What can we do to stop this galloping inflation that is reaching 24.08% according to the last data? Because the FX is definitely playing a scenario in the economy because we are import dependent. Like Taiwo said, we don't produce anything. So the increase in FX will definitely trickle down to imported inflation. And even the Nigerian masses don't wear made in Nigeria. We all wear imported clothes. So what are we going to do to our inflation? And what is the price to pay?
So that would mean, okay, yeah. So maybe from the specialist point of view, I'll give 2 points of view, maybe from the specialist and maybe what the government can do. Textbook theory, when you have galloping inflation, I believe the economics theory will tell you that you have to start raising rates, like what we've seen the FOMC doing in the US. Even though you would have to admit that Nigeria's inflation is a bit peculiar because of this FX dependency that you mentioned. So if what do you call it, for FX dependency, like you mentioned, we have to like move, like Taiwo mentioned, we have to move from being like consumers of FX to being like
people that generate
rates.
FX. Yeah,
because all the things that the CBN acting CBN governor's announcement, all these interventions that have happened recently, they are really short term. Like in the very long term, like the only way you can defend your currency against the dollar is to increase your supply. Long term, easiest way to increase your supply really is to go from consumption based to production based. I think Taiwo mentioned something earlier in this session where he said that we have a lot of mineral resources spread across the country. I think maybe, in my own opinion, downward spiral for FX started the moment we discovered oil. We've become too dependent on oil. I think we need to channel our other natural resources, try to get to the point where those resources are enough to meet our needs as a nation, and even to the point where we begin to export to other nations just to help our what do you call it, our FX supply. But go on, you're going to say something.
Yeah, so it's a prevalent concept in economics, resource cost thesis, where because you have a resource that is prevalent like oil, you get over dependent, and because of that, instead of the economy growing, it starts deteriorating. But
I mean, just oil is, of course, like everybody said, yes, oil. But it's not because we had oil. I think it's because of the way the oil has been managed.
Yeah, managed. Yeah,
because we obviously point to the likes of Saudi, and we just saw one report that came out for in Norway, the Norwegian sovereign wealth fund, generating about 140 something billion.
that was massive.
Yeah. I was joking with my friends. I said maybe Nigeria, we all need to go and beg for some money. I think they won't even feel it. Right now, if we have that some sort of injection, from that kind of place, I think it would definitely help. But just to be honest, I think the FX situation has been a long time coming. I'm not sure any of us here from inception, I feel Naira, if you took a bet against Naira from inception, you'd probably be an Elon Musk right now. Right? So there's a fundamental problem that needs to be solved. And of course, when you're talking about inflation in Nigeria is very unique. And yes, the traditional textbook, and I don't really, because as a monetary authority, your job is price stability. And you have, where you can play, what you can play with, your interest rates, your tools you can play with. You can use your interest rates, and you are limited to that, right? So as a monetary authority, you are supposed to do what you're supposed to do. Doesn't necessarily mean that it may translate to that. But of course, it can. Your fiscal side too has a role to play. So there has to be some synergy between both, authorities as well. But I try to tell my friends, or when I'm talking to my friends, they will say, "Oh, I'm a motivational speaker or something." But I feel like I'm a realist. I try to look at things from a realistic point of view. Let's just assess how Nigeria has been for how many years, and let's be realistic that for you to fix any situation that we're going. There are some short-term fixes, right, that you can possibly adopt. But the case of Nigeria is like, I don't know if any of you have been to Dubai, or at least you would have seen. We all know the Burj Khalifa, right?
Yeah.
That's like the tallest or one of the
building in the
tallest
world.
buildings. So just imagine, you're looking at that building, so beautiful. Because Africa, I think Nigeria is beautiful. We have all the resources, we have human capital, and you realize that after building such a beautiful building, that tall and nice building, you realize that the foundation
Faulty.
is faulty. Now, the leader, whether you built it or not, you are the one in charge now, and you realize that the foundation is bad. Do you continue to patch and continue to reinforce just because of how beautiful the building
The
is?
structure is.
Your mind is you don't want to take it down. You just want to keep looking for how to just patch it up.
Yeah.
But ultimately, you know that people are living in this building, and it can eventually come down at any point. A real leader with that political will come and tell you and say, you know what, in as much as I know that this is going to be very painful, we have to take this building down and rebuild this building. And whilst you're taking this building down, guess what? You're going to displace a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Right? So as you're displacing a lot of people, you also have to let them know that, look, I'm taking this down so that we can build a better Burj Khalifa. And I think that's where we need to really go in terms of Nigeria, in terms of, I feel, the communication between government and the people. There are a lot of things that have been lacking, a lot of gaps in Nigeria, and that's going to need to be addressed. And if you are really trying to address it, it's going to cause a lot of pain. But the government needs to do a better job in terms of trying to get people on board and understand what steps they are taking and why they're taking those steps. So for FX, I think Nigeria, I think we've seen the CBN, the monetary try to take up rates, try to introduce OMO to try to see how they can get some supply back into the system. Don't forget that we used to have a lot of FPIs in our markets, but since the whole 2016 and how a lot of FPIs were unable to take their money out as well, got stuck here, it kind of created some sort of trust issues and imbalance, and you see that to get that fresh investment coming in would require a lot more, for you to pay a lot more, and also a lot more for you to be able to sensitize them a lot more, like it's better for them to come in. You need to build that trust and get them, more interested again to come in.
Yeah, talking about trust and FX forwards, let's talk about the guy that flew close to the sun. So I went to Blog only to see that Emefiele was making a phone call. And we will not be banter economics without talking a little bit about the CBN governor. So what do you have to say? The CBN just released their financials that they haven't released for a couple of years now. They have delayed to release their financials. And upon viewing their financials, there were a couple of things. We saw that there was a substantial loan from JP Morgan and others. We also saw like up to 3.1 trillion of FX forwards. So combined with the loan of 3.5 trillion, going to 6 trillion impact on our reserves. So this is clearly, although taking a loan from big banks is not uncommon practice, but the fact that it was kind of hidden left people thinking that the central bank needs more transparency. So let's look at the former central bank governor, and what is your take on him? Opeyemi?
If I speak, I'll be in so much trouble.
This is banter economics.
But yeah, so on central bank, really, like, is there really anything to say? Like, everybody knows the situation of so for financial markets, like, there's something that is very key. Is it one, or I think two things, like transparency and trust are very key. Like, we as professionals, we've been complaining for the last 2-3 years that why has the central bank published their result. And I know it's a bit laughable, really, because the central bank is like a regulator for commercial banks. All these commercial banks, they are made to release their results
Exactly.
every quarter. So it's really just it just sends a very bad look that the commercial banks have been releasing their results to time, and the parent body has like it gives me the vibes of that parent that Okpeyemi when I used to confess. Meanwhile, like it really sends a bad signal. That's why you saw immediately they released their financials, I believe last week, Thursday evening, if I'm not wrong. Like in the Eurobond market, like
we saw that it definitely dipped.
Like
it didn't really resonate well with investors. Of course, they had to process that. Of course, I mean, the TBN has been publishing the gross for quite a while. I think most of us have been dealing in the market based on the fact that we thought that our true reserve position was around 34 billion, right? Which, in the grand scheme of things, 34 billion is not a lot, but I mean, it's still sufficient enough to be able to. And then this explains how, why we've seen that pressure in that FX market, and we've not been able to get some supply there, because you can see that a lot of our reserves are encumbered as well. So again, not to take too much time, I think the major point to draw from this is that, like we've been saying, transparency is very important for investors, right? Investors want to see what is happening, the true picture.
Yeah.
An investor is willing to take a risk, right? That's his job. You're trying to take a risk based on your own risk appetite. Now, if you show me the true picture, I can calculate the kind of risk I'm trying to take, right? But it doesn't negate me from taking the risk. But when there's a lot of uncertainty, you're not really going to get the kind of investment or the adequate amount of investment that you should be getting. Yeah. So I think that's one of the things that we should try to. I think going forward, we're happy to see that they've released that report. A lot of people can read it different ways. Some people will say, well, it's not uncommon for central banks to do that. I mean, we can read it in different ways. I mean, if we talk about that now, we'll probably be here for forever. But again, it's a good step to try to be more transparent and get all of us to know what the true picture is. And I think let's see how we're still expecting to see if this acting governor stays, or we're going to get a new CBN governor. So we'll be expecting to see that.
Oh, lovely. So we have had an amazing session, from TinuBullonomics to inflation to talking about the CBN governor. But before we go, let's talk about the savings deposits. Nigerian savings deposits are at an all-time high, going close to 5%. What does that mean? That means if you keep 1 million naira in your savings deposit, you probably get 5% of 1 million naira. But is that a true investment? Let's talk to our asset manager before we wrap up. So do you think I should put my 1 million naira in my bank account just like that because it's 5%?
Oh, you can, but that would mean you don't have proper advisors. Like you're allowed to do anything you want, but that's the thing about moving forward in life. You need to have good advisors behind you. That's where we come in. So rather than just keeping your money in the commercial bank savings account at 5%, why not cross over to commercial partners? We have a money market fund that offers more than double of that. Currently, our yield on the money market fund ranges be somewhere between 10.5 and 12%. Currently, top 3 ranked funds in Nigeria. That's a matter of fact.
Wow. So what's the maturity on that?
So we try to keep a weighted average maturity of 90 days. So with as little as 10,000 naira, you can gain access to the fund. You don't need to be a millionaire. So for those of you that are not, maybe if you're like me, that you are a broke boy. everybody has 10,000 really, and you can have access. So the thing with commercial banks is, you forfeit your interest on your savings account when you withdraw more than twice in a month. But with our money market fund, once you stay for a minimum holding period of 30 days, subsequently you can get your money anytime you want, and you will still be enjoying the full benefit of the interest on that.
Wow, this is big news. What my Oga just said, because he's the expert, means even the 5% you're supposed to get on your 1 million, if you withdraw twice, you're not even going to get it. but investing with an investment bank shows that you could get double of that in a shorter period of time. So if you want more information, please tune in to Banter Economics. And without further ado, it's a wrap. Thank you.
Banter Economics.